Another video on Concord. One more, I guess. I didn't think we would get any more until the game cropped back up again in whatever form it's going to take and whenever it comes back up. But it seems we got one more little one here. It's funny though, I had to download the May State of Play for at least the third time. I might have had to re-download it for every video. I just keep underestimating how many videos I need to make on this topic, and this is the only footage I care to throw in here. Let me check and see if it's done. Yep, it's done downloading. All right, I'm gonna drag it into the thing now. So the situation overall, I'd say, has certainly an element of humor to it. You know, I admit I'm being a little petty with all of this talk around the game, but there's a certain level of satisfaction to it. And before I go any further, like, it goes without saying that this is awful for the devs themselves. Like, don't get me wrong here. Like, if the people who actually worked on this game spent that much of their lives on it just to have it all taken away, like, no, that's awful. Especially anyone who worked on it and really did put a lot of passion into it. You know, games, they're made by so many people doing their jobs really, really well, things that they're really passionate about. And so, like, no, it's not fun at all. And, you know, I certainly don't blame them whatsoever. If there's anything entertaining about this, it's purely from the higher level executive kind of point of view. You know, it's just the idea of these companies banking on these live service multiplayer games again and again and again, and just taking these wild swings and spending so much money on them when it's already an overcrowded market, and they're giving us these products that just seem so generic, like they bring nothing to the table. And it's just like, of course we're not interested. Of course we're not. We could have told you at any point in this whole process. So, like, yeah, I know, and I know it's a whole deeper discussion. I know Firewalk, Sony didn't own them until somewhat recently, so I don't know what their relationship was. You know, if Sony was involved at all, how much of it was Sony's doing, how much of it was just Firewalk, and then Sony took all that on when they bought them. I really don't know, but like, it's a huge misfire. It's a big misstep. It's another example of just trying to feed us another one of these games and not giving it anything that sets it apart, expecting us to just eat it up and buy all the battle passes and microtransactions and just fork over billions of dollars for them. And it keeps happening. And so, like, that's the level where it's sort of entertaining. It's in a petty sort of way, I'll admit. It's kind of like, I told you so. You know, it's just kind of like, how many times do we have to go through this in that way? It's a little funny that they had to take down the game so quickly that 2 weeks after launch, stopped selling it in stores, issued refunds to everybody who bought the game digitally, shut down the servers, just took the whole thing down. And you know, it was kind of unprecedented. It really does seem that way. I've been reading up on other, like, big notable live service flops, and I don't think anything has been removed so quickly as this game was. You know, there's other stuff it's kind of fizzled out before it even really launched, but like, this is a big AAA first-party Sony thing, and for it to get yanked so quickly and to sell so few copies, the estimate is still looking at 25,000, which I just can't even believe. But one little thing has cropped up in the last few days related to Concord that is a little less funny, quote-unquote funny, a little less entertaining. You know what I mean? Physical copies of the game that are out there in the wild obviously don't work anymore. They can't connect to any kind of server or anything. You have the physical disc, but you put it in and it just, like, brings you to the title screen, and, like, that's it. And yeah, that makes sense. But it seems that Sony has been deleting digital versions of the game outright. And not just removing it from the store, but, like, if you downloaded the game if you're one of those few thousand people who downloaded the game on your system, on your PlayStation, Sony is going in and deleting that. Not just removing access from the shop, not just making it so you can't re-download it. No, deleting it from your console. And if you happen to not have your console hooked to the internet, I don't know who that would be, but if you happen to be that person, then there's no way for them to remove it. But, you know, if it's hooked up to the internet and you walk away, you know, your PlayStation notices that you're not in the room anymore, Sony's little fingers, they crawl in there, they just remove it, just delete it from your hard drive. And it's really just kind of reopened up this whole discussion. Like, we all know that owning something digitally is like not really owning it. Like, we all know in theory that all of this stuff is completely intangible. We're actually just buying access to like the licensing rights, and they can technically take it away at any time, but they don't though. They really haven't yet, because like, it would be a really bad look. You know what I mean? Like, technically they could do it. Maybe they will down the line, but for the most part, they'll remove things for sale, but if you have them, you can keep them. Usually you can even re-download them, even if they're not for sale anymore. Usually you can re-download them. But even if they were to remove that, at the very least, if you had it on your console, then you would have it. Because like, yeah, I buy a lot of digital. I do. And I recognize that it's a lot worse for preservation and all that. I don't like the idea that someday these libraries may be rendered useless. I think I just try not to worry about it too much, because the benefits kind of outweigh the downsides for me, the ease and the convenience, and I don't want to worry too much about like what might happen really far in the future. I just kind of want to, it's a me thing, you know, like I don't fault anybody for going either way, full digital, full physical, like whatever. This is just kind of me. I just want to play the games in whatever way is like convenient, and I mostly get stuff on sale anyway, so I'm never paying that much for these games. But yeah, like, I get it, we get it. Technically, yeah, you don't own anything digitally, and yet it's not fun to be reminded. It's not fun to be reminded that technically, if you've got your system hooked up to the internet, they could come in at any time and delete it off of there. You don't even get the option to remove the data yourself. They just do it for you. They can technically manipulate your system in any way that they want. And if you want to go even deeper with it, they can monitor anything you do on the system. Like, it's this whole thing is just, it's kind of brought something up that we try not to look at. You know, we try to pretend it isn't a problem. And maybe it isn't, you know, because again, they don't want to take this stuff from you. Is Sony gonna like go under tomorrow and remove everybody's library? Like, no, it's probably not gonna happen. Even when businesses do go out of business, they don't usually just wipe stuff from your system. It's not coming up a lot, at least for now. But then it happens in this case, and it gets you thinking about it. It gets you thinking about the future. It gets you thinking about, what if that does happen though? Everything that has ever happened, there was once a time where it hadn't happened yet, you know? And at that time, people might have been like, yeah, but that's never happened. And then it happened. And once it's happened, you're like, well, now it's happened. But until then, and that's why this little example, it's that little crack, that little thing, the crack in the confidence of this whole system. And it makes you really think, wow, they really can just take this stuff away. I mean, obviously everyone got refunds. They all got refunds, and they took the game offline. You couldn't play the game anyway. That's not the point. It sort of makes sense for Sony, but the point is, you get the point. It's just a little spooky that they could have just shut down the game. They could have just rendered it impossible to use by shutting down the servers. But going that extra step and snaking their little grabby fingers into your console and removing that data themselves, It's spooky. It's downright spooky. And watching Concord crash and burn has been satisfying in its own way. Again, in a very kind of surface level, petty sort of way, to say nothing of all of the actual, like, real serious problems plaguing the industry and all the people who worked on the game and people who might get fired because of the game. Just, like, I get it. Like, you know, that's totally awful. But in that way, that this has been sort of entertaining, this last little bit, less fun. Yeah, a lot less fun being reminded of what, like, the future of games might look like. The amount of control that these companies may choose to employ in the future when it serves them. Less fun. Significantly less fun.